If you ever had that moment where your dream changed, the plan unraveled, and your assignment that you were sure about is no longer so certain, this is the episode for you. In this episode, today we're going to talk about letting go of the old vision and not losing your identity. We're also going to discuss grieve what was while staying open to what is next. And then we're going to redefine what success looks like when the metrics no longer match your season. You'll walk away with language. You'll walk away with the in between tools to help you in your transition and the courage to say, I am not lost. I am just being rerouted. You know how it is when you have that GPS system and you know you just made a wrong turn, but you have this confidence that you are going to be rerouted. That is what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Randy Adkins Jr., author, teacher, speaker, preacher, and lifelong learner. In this episode, the vision changed. So now what? The vision changed. So now what? So let's get into it. The scripture I'm going to start off with is coming from Ecclesiastes, the third chapter and the 8th verse. It says, He makes all things beautiful in its time, not your time, but in His time. When we have that and understand that it's time, the time God chooses, and when God does it, it won't just be functional, it will be beautiful. When God puts something in place, it is something that is magnificent. And as I was just talking the other day, I said, when God does something, it doesn't just have one way of affecting your life, but it has multifaceted ways of affecting your life. When we allow God's time to be the thing that helps us, like in this verse, it reminds us that God's timing is God's territory, not ours. So we let God's timing be the thing that will guide us, show us where we are supposed to be. So we may see something as broken. We might even see it as delayed or misaligned. But God sees it from a higher perspective, one rooted in eternal purpose, whatever your meaning, whatever your impact is supposed to be. When we look at His timing, it's always going to be a timing that will provide so many impacts in our lives. Beautiful in this verse, it doesn't mean perfect, it doesn't mean painless. But what that beautiful means, it means that you are whole. That's right, redeemed. You know how you redeem coupons? It's just like that. You have been redeemed back to a place and you rightfully placed. That's what the beautiful means. It means that God has a way of weaving even the ugliest, the most confusing seasons that we might have in our lives into something that will make sense when it's time. But here's the tension. We live in the middle of this verse. We're not the everything beautiful part yet. That's right. We are at the why is this happening part. And that's where faith does its best work. It's in that in between stage. It's in that transition. It's not in the beautiful where we begin to see that tension happen in our lives. So, how does this relate to our episode? In this episode, we're going to be talking about how vision shifts. You had a plan, you had a dream, you had a blueprint, and then life flipped it. Now you're grieving what was, trying to understand what is, and wondering what if what's next will ever be as good as what you feel you have just lost. Ecclesiastes 3 and 11 says, It will be beautiful, but not necessarily today, not necessarily how you imagine, but in its time. God's beautiful often begins with our broken. Let me repeat that one more time. God's beautiful sometimes begins with our broken. So let's start off by talking about our identity crisis in transition. We're still going through a series of talking about navigating transitions, and our identity becomes a very important part of who we are, how we show up, and what we're all about. In fact, it's the reason I wrote the book Produce on Purpose, is so that we can find out who we really are. And how can we, during these times of our lives, during transition, if we have an identity crisis, what can we do? I remember many years ago, we were real estate investors. We were also real estate agents at the time, and we had multiple houses. And one of the houses that I was renovating, and it had what we call good bones, but it was outdated. The walls were outdated. The kitchen was outdated. You had a cramped kitchen. The natural light was not there. So what did I do? We also that particular property was a 3 bedroom and 1 bath. We wanted to make it include another bathroom to it. And so what I did is I bulldozed the whole and knocked out walls and except for the ones that were important. And we opened up the space. I reworked the layout to make sure that it was a more open floor plan, and it actually so that it would actually flow when you came into that place. And so I also made sure that that bathroom was beautiful and it was a bathroom on the master suite. And bit by bit, the house transformed, not by starting over, but by being refined to be better. This is something sometimes that happens in our lives, is that we need to be refined. Just like I did with the house, I took the bones and I still went ahead and renovated and customized. Sometimes for us, it is for us to be refined so that we could serve better. We could serve people in a more impactful way. In these transitions, it's not that we should just bulldoze everything out and completely down, but we might need to take out some of the things that have become outdated. So it's not destruction, it's just a renovation that's happening in your life when you meet one of these transitions. God never discards you, He never discards me. He rearranges and refines, and sometimes He removes parts of our plan and of your plan so that the true purpose has space to shine. Your true purpose, your true meaning, what you really are about. Your gifting has a moment and has time to be able to shine. It may look messy in the middle when we're talking about being in a transition place, but I want you to know and encourage you, it's not the end. It's a divine renovation. It's a divine renovation with purpose, for purpose, and on purpose. Yes. So let's talk about some real things that happen in our lives. It's not just hard when your plans change, it's hard when your identity was attached to those plans. Have you ever had a time where your role shifts, the job ends? It might be something that you have been doing for many, many years, and now it gets interrupted and you never saw it coming. And you feel like you're just not losing direction, but now you're losing definition. This is your episode. This is why I wanted to talk to you, because sometimes we can get wrapped up in the role that we are playing at this moment. I'm very, very excited because I have been the dad in my children's lives that have been children. Now I'm the dad of adults, and that's different. It's a transition. It's something I have to learn to be, and it's something they have to also learn how we all interact and how we move forward. Sometimes you can see it coming. We saw that coming, but there's some that you don't see coming. And if your identity has been wrapped into a role or something that you've been playing, you have to remember that you are not your title. You are not the title. You are not the role. You are not the position. You are you. You are not your timeline. And sometimes people get wrapped up in the time that it takes to do something, or the time that it has been that you have been going through or working through something, but you have been growing, you have been moving, you have been moving forward. And so you are not that previous version of yourself. The first principle, the first thing I want you to think about as we talk about this identity is that your identity must be rooted in who you are, not in what you do. I've talked about this multiple times before. There are other episodes where I talk about that what we do is important, and how we move about this life is extremely important to how we affect this world. However, what you do is not who you are. And in fact, who we are will shift the things that we do in different seasons. Who you are will continue to remain. Your gifting sometimes is expressed differently in a particular time in your season than in another time in your season. There are times in our lives when we must allow for who we are to shine and to come through. And even in the toughest of transitions, it's very difficult sometimes when culture, when social norms tell us that we should be wrapped up in our job titles, in our achievements, in the education that we get, or the output. But the output should not be mistaken for your identity. And I am here to share with you that this principle reminds us that there's something that is deeper in you than what you produce. There's something that is deeper within you than what you show to this world. When a vision, a role, or a season shifts, people often experience a crisis, not just of direction, but of self worth, because you have tied your identity to the role or to the output. And at this moment, I want to call you back to the center of who you really are. That's right, you are the essence of your values, the essence of your character, the essence of your purpose. And remember, in the book of Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You, we always talk about the general purpose. That general purpose is to please our creator. That means that if our creator, God, is love, then all that I do, I will have that general purpose. I will do it with that same love. However, there's this specific purpose that we all have, and it's all unique to each of us. Each of us has gifting, each of us has purpose that are specific to us. And as we are expressing those gifts, we must make sure that those gifts don't get wrapped up in the roles that we play, don't get wrapped up in the output, because your gifting will move into whatever your next season is and whatever your transition might be. Your character, your purpose, and your values, they are stable. That's right. They're stable in all seasons. And even when your job description or your path in life changes, your characters and your value, they don't change. Just because the assignment is now changed or is over, it doesn't mean that your value did. And you're not less chosen or less capable or less purposeful just because your environment now looks different. Let me share that one more time with you. Just because the assignment changed doesn't mean your value did. You're not less chosen, less capable, or less purposeful. You now have just changed your environment, and it just looks a little different on the outside. But what's on the inside of you has not changed. Remember, we did a scripture last season, and the scripture said, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" That's Isaiah 43 and 19. Sometimes the hardest parts of our new beginnings and transitions is that they don't feel new. We feel like they are endings. But in the endings, there's always something new. And the truth is that God is doing a new thing. Often looks like a disruption before it looks like a direction. God is what is he is doing right now. It might look like a disruption, but it is truly starting you on a new direction. Let's look at the second point that I'm looking at as we are saying, now the vision has changed. Now what? The second thing I want you to understand is we need to be able to grieve the old vision, the old job, the old role. And you need to be able to grieve that in a healthy way. So let's normalize something. You can grieve a good thing that ended, and even when you know God called you to let it go, you can grieve that old thing that you had, even when God has told you to let it go. And it's okay to grieve. Here's what grieving sometimes may look like in our lives. It's not rebellion when you grieve, it's just release. Grieving allows for us to truly release and to get into a space where you can now allow the new to show up. It's okay if you cry over what once was. Give yourself grace to do that. Give yourself time to release that, to be disappointed in maybe things that had occurred or had went on, and you can let that be able to be something you can cry over. You can cry over what you feel you lost for a while. Remember, even Jesus wept. Remember when he saw Mary and Martha crying over Lazarus' death, he wept, even though he knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead again. So, crying is something that we can all do. The main area I want you to understand is don't get stuck in your grief. Let's move, continue to allow it to move you towards grace. Allow it to continue to move you in that new direction. And as you're grieving and you're moving towards grace, and you might cry a little bit, you might have things or thoughts that you feel, speak them out. Have someone in your life to where you can allow a safe place where you can grieve what once was. It might be a relationship. It may be something that you need to make a major transition in your life about. Many high capacity and faith filled people, they feel guilty about grieving a closed door, especially when they know God was behind the shift. Sometimes God is right behind the shift and he's the one that makes it happen. The principle reframes grief as a holy part of transition. Grief is a holy part of our transition, not a lack of faith. When we grieve it, that's allowing our humanity and who we are to be able to express and to shift into the new thing in our lives. It's permission to feel the loss and without shame. You shouldn't be shameful about it. You shouldn't feel guilty about it. You should allow yourself to release and feel that loss, to acknowledge a disappointment without being disobedient. Remember, if God puts you on this path, it's time for you to be obedient to the new that is coming in your life. Letting go can break your heart. It can be something that can hurt you to your core, but it still blesses your life. I always reminded of the seed. Any seed, most seeds have hard shells. And in order for the seed to ever bloom and for it to stem and to ever come out of the ground, it has to break. And many times we go through these transitions, we are broken, but God is making a move in our lives to something beautiful. He is making a move in our lives to something different that you've never seen before. He's making a shift in your life and a transition in your life. But you can allow yourself to cry. You can allow yourself to speak out those thoughts, those feelings, whatever it is in your life, so that you can move to that next space in your life, that new thing. If you look at the old and properly grieve it, you can then move to the next. You can start to say that you love the past, you honor the journey, and still say, God, I trust you with what's next. So here's some practical tools that can help us. Now the vision has changed. Now what? Practical tools for just letting go. Here's some three practical ways that I encourage you to process changing vision without losing yourself or losing your identity. The first thing I would ask that you do is an identity audit. This is going to be an audit on yourself and looking at who you are, the real you, the real whoever you are at the core. So, this tool walks us through separating the roles from your identity. It exposes these subtle ways that we sometimes attach ourselves to something that's called performance or position or perception. We sometimes can attach ourselves to those things. And this will provide some space between that for you to be able to reclaim eternally who you really are. Who am I when I am not producing, performing, or praised? That's who I need to come back to. Ask yourself this question: who am I when I'm not producing, performing, or being praised? Who are you when you are laying in your bed and nothing else is going on? Nothing is happening. It feels like you are at a standstill. Ask yourself this question: what labels have I clung to that no longer serve me? What labels have I clung to that no longer serve me? Have I been clinging to the position that I had and the reverence that I had from a position that I was in? Am I clinging to the relationship and a person that was in my life and that relationship is no longer there because of either the relationship is broken or the person is no longer here? And what am I clinging to that no longer serves me? Where have I confused my role with my worth? Your worth never changes. That's why the example of giving someone $100 bill and you say, I'm going to give it to you, but wait a minute. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crumble it up. Do you still want the $100? And the person says, yes. Well, what if I take it and I put mud and dirt over all of the $100? Do you still want that $100? And they say, yes. And you could do all kinds of things to that $100, but the worth of that $100 is still $100, and you would want that $100 even if it's been through the worst of the worst. It's the same for us. Whatever you've been through, whatever's gone on in your life, you're still worth it. The roles that you have put on are just the outside tatterings. Maybe it's the crumbling of the $100 bill. Maybe you have been crumbled. Maybe you have been crushed in some places in your life, but that didn't change your worth. You are valuable. The worthiness of who you are still remains the same. So when you ask yourself those questions, I want you to write those questions down. Again, who am I when I'm not producing, performing, or praised? Write it down. What's the labels that I have clung to that no longer serve me? And where have I confused my role with my worth? Write it down. Then I want you to cross off what's not true anymore and circle what's still real: your values, your voice, and your calling. This exercise really does help us to pull ourselves away from the roles and remind us of who we are in our identity, the real you. Number two, here's another tool for you to do. I want you to release and receive. This is going to be symbolic. It embodies the actions so that you can solidify your emotional and your spiritual shifts. So, this principle gives you a place where you can be safe and you can have a sacred space to name what you're letting go. So, what I would like for you to do is to get a small stone. Wherever you can find a small stone, you might be able to have to go outside or whatever. Get a small stone in one hand. This represents what you have been carrying: stress, fear, doubt, disappointment. And I want you to say aloud, today I release whatever it is, all of those things that you just talked about: stress, pain, whatever it is. I don't have to carry this anymore. Secondly, on the receiving side, I want you to get a piece of paper, light piece of paper, maybe a leaf, an object that is very light, something that you could carry with you. It might even be a feather. And you can write a word on a piece of paper, which I like paper to do this, and it represents what you're open to. Write down whether it's peace, clarity, strength, whatever, a new beginning. And I want you to say this aloud: today, I receive whatever you're open to. I'm open to that peace. I'm open to that joy. I'm open to the overflow of God. I'm open to the blessings in my life. I want that clarity. I want that strength in my life. And I make space for this in my life. That's right. Today, I receive whatever it is. I make space for this in my life. So I want you to take the stone, and if it's possible, we live near the water here in the low country. I would tell you to take that stone and throw it into the ocean as you have repeated and released that, so that it is no longer part of you, symbolizing the release of the emotional ties, the spiritual ties to whatever those things are in your life. And then with the piece of paper or the leaf or the feather or whatever it is that you have chosen to have words on, I want you to take that and keep that with you, whether that is in your purse, your wallet, whatever it is, to remind you. I want you to use it as a reminder that you are now open to allowing these blessings to happen in your life. That is the second practical tool I want you to utilize during this vision shift that's happening in your life, because now the vision changed. Now what? Number three, I want you to define the wins in this season. If your metrics for success don't evolve with your transition, you'll feel like you're failing, when in fact you are maturing, you are growing, you are becoming a new person. The principle here teaches that how you need to reframe what success looks like. It's time to change those metrics, especially in this new season of redefinition and of recovery that you are going through. Change your metrics. You're no longer going to use the same metrics that you did in the old. You're going to now use some new metrics. Peace might be your win. I got peace now. I'm no longer where I was. I have peace in it. Healing might be your new productivity. Don't downgrade your growth just because it looks difficult. There are going to be this life, there are things that can look difficult, there are things that can go on, but you are transforming, you are becoming new, you are changing. The old, you might have measured success in the status or the income or the things that you have accomplished and gathered in your life, but in this season, measure it by peace. In this season, you might measure it by how joyful you are or how much you laugh. You might measure this new season by how authentic you are. You are no longer going into situations with a mask on. Again, read, produce on purpose. It will help you be able to break those masks and to look at who you really are. Maybe it's now you are measuring how much rest you have gotten, because the more rest we get, the more impactful we can become when the interactions happen. And sometimes we have measured ourselves about how busy we can be versus how much rest we can get. So redefine that winning and what winning looks like. Otherwise, you'll keep mourning metrics that no longer apply to you. And it's time to let go of those old metrics that define the old you and for you to move into a new space. I'm reminded of in college, it's like when you shift and you want to change majors. It's not that you are out of college, but you are still enrolled. You are still brilliant. You are still moving forward. It's just now you've gotten clearer about what aligns with your purpose and what aligns with where you're going. And so, guess what? Nothing you learn was wasted. Nothing you learn is wasted. If you shift and change your major, and that's what happens in these transitions, you shift and change what you're majoring in. I'm no longer going to major in the minor. I'm now majoring in these other things that I'm majoring in. Every credit counts. And even if it's now an elective, that's right. When you're in college, sometimes that might have been a part of what I was doing for my major in a major class. But now that I've shift majors, that thing now becomes an elective. It becomes a minor. It's no longer part of my major. And you can do that in your life today. So let's wrap this all up and put it back together because we've done some great work, and I want you to have this soul work that we're going to do this week and weeks to come as you watch this episode and as you pass this along is for the soul work for this week. I want you to write in your journal. That's right. We've been journaling throughout this path and all of the seasons in Produce on Purpose. What am I afraid I'll lose if I let go of this old version? Write that down in your journal prompt and write that out over the next week. Write out what that means to you. What am I afraid I'll lose if I let go of this old version? What has God been whispering that I've been afraid to admit? What has God been whispering that I am afraid to admit? And the last journal prompt is, how can I honor the past but not be imprisoned by it? How can I honor the past and not be imprisoned by it? Lord, give us the courage to grieve what I outgrew. That's right. Help me trust that you're not just writing a new chapter, you're deepening the plot. I don't want the version of the vision I imagined. I want the version that glorifies you. The challenge for you this week, and as you continue to think about this, I want you to tell someone the truth about how your vision is shifting, how you feel in this moment. It might be a trusted friend, a mentor, a spouse, or a counselor. Share it with somebody. Tell them the truth about how things are shifted or changed in your life. Say this: I think what I want is changing, and I am learning to be okay with that. I think what I want is changing. I am learning to be okay with that. And you say that out loud and talk to someone who will not judge what you're saying, talking about what you're going through. They don't need to provide any advice. Allow them to just listen to you say it out loud. Because often our healing begins with us being honest with ourselves, being honest in this shift, in this change in our lives. And that right there will wrap up this episode of Produce on Purpose. If this episode hits you deep, then good, because that means that you are growing, that you are moving in a great direction, that we are here to not provide any fluff, but we want to be real. We want to talk about what you are rooted in your purpose. And as a producer in this world, that you are moving forward, that you are creating that life that God has already put within you to do, that you're moving from the inside out and not the outside in, and that you're shifting in your life every moment. So, if something stirred you today, made you pause, or pushed you forward, don't keep it to yourself. I want you to share it with someone that you love. Post it. I want you to text it. I want you to let it breathe outside of your headphones or earphones, earbuds that you are listening to this at this moment. I want you to make sure that you subscribe so you'll never miss the moments that move you. in this podcast. And this episode, if it spoke your language, I want you to drop a review. It helps more producers and purpose chasers like you find us. And if you want to keep the energy going, go grab the book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You. You can grab it as an ebook, you can grab it as a paperback or an audio book. Get the book. And I want you to connect with me, randyatkinsjr.com. At randyatkinsjr.com, I read every message that comes through, every comment that comes through, and your voice helps shape what we discuss and what we share next. Remember this: you were made on purpose. So live like it, produce like it, and keep showing up as the real you. Until next time, stay rooted, stay ready, and stay producing on purpose.